"Help me breathe," came the desperate plea from within. But as the solitary rancher pulled away the burlap covering, his world stopped. Wyoming Territory. 1870s. Twilight painted the endless grasslands in shades of wounded copper before fading to gray. Storm clouds pressed down like a heavy lid, while fierce winds screamed across the barren ground like demons hunting shadows. At the far edge of that desolate expanse sat a weathered homestead, battered and quiet, its timber frame moaning against the bitter cold. Wyatt Reed tugged his jacket closer as he pushed into the gale. Dirt spiraled around his worn boots, his weathered hat dancing with every powerful gust. He'd planned to remain inside where the hearth blazed warm, especially since his bones protested more with each passing winter. But one of his Murrays had been restless in her stall, and he couldn't afford damaged boards or a panicked animal. His measured steps carried him toward the stable, the careful rhythm of someone accustomed to isolation. His leather gloves groaned as he tightened his hold on the oil lamp. The flame within wavered, throwing dancing shadows along the dirt path. This land had been Wyatt's world since childhood. He'd raised the barn alongside his father, laid his beloved wife to rest here when fever claimed her, then buried their precious daughter just 14 days after. Since those dark times, only he remained, along with the endless wind and choking dust. The stall showed no damage. Ready to return indoors, he suddenly stopped cold. Through the howling gale, another sound emerged. A human voice, faint as a whisper. "Someone help me. I can't get air." He spun toward the sound. It came from the neglected supply shack, a structure he hadn't entered in months. The warped doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. The whole thing tilted precariously, ready to crumble at any moment. Lifting his lantern higher, he moved closer. "Please, anybody. I can single quotes, The voice came muffled and strained. The wind fought to steal it away, but he'd heard enough. Wyatt's hand instinctively found his sidearm before he forced open the twisted door. The stench struck him immediately. Old dust, human sweat, and something sharp and metallic that spoke of blood and terror. He raised the lantern high. Light flooded across broken shelving, corroded tools, coiled rope, and then movement near some grain sacks. One of them shifted, jerked, then again. Wyatt advanced carefully, his boots silent on the earthen floor. This wasn't just a sack, it held a person. Burlap tied with cord, writhing weakly. The voice returned, rough and frantic. Double quotes, "Please, I'm suffocating." He knelt and set down his light. His fingers attacked the knots. Whoever had done this meant to keep her concealed. As the rough fabric fell away, the smell intensified. A face appeared, female, young, perhaps 20. Her features were mottled with bruises, lips split and dry. Dirty cloth covered her mouth, more fabric over her head. Wyatt paused. Could this be a trap? Someone using her as bait to draw him out? His hand hovered above the sack. She shook violently, fighting for air through the gag. Her frame gaunt and battered. Slowly, he reached out and removed the cloth from her mouth. She coughed violently, each breath scraping her throat raw. Her eyes opened, wide, terrified, impossibly blue. They found his and held them. "Please," she wheezed. "Don't let them find me again." Wyatt's heart clenched. Gently, he pulled the remaining fabric from her head. Golden hair, matted with sweat and dried blood, clung to her face. Rope marks circled her wrists. Scratches covered her arms. She squinted against the lamplight. "I mean you no harm," he said softly. She winced, attempting to sit upright. "Easy now," he added. "You're protected here. This is ranch land." "My ranch." Her breathing came quick and shallow. Tears traced paths down her cheeks. "They abandoned me here to die." Wyatt removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. "I don't know who hurt you," he murmured, "but I'll damn well find out." As he gathered her in his arms, she released a soft, agonized whimper but didn't fight him. Her fingers gripped his shirt like it was her lifeline to existence. Wyatt glanced once more into the shadows, then kicked the door closed behind them. The wind shrieked outside. But within the ranch house, everything had shifted. He was no longer alone with just the wind and dust. Wyatt placed her carefully on the cot beside the fireplace, mindful of her injuries. The cabin held the scent of pine smoke and aged leather, warm and lived in. He moved with purpose, clean rags, water basin. The last of his whiskey. Lydia trembled, curled inward, eyes alert but distant. Dirt streaked her cheeks, her wrists were raw, lips cracked. "Stay conscious," he said gently. "At least until I tend these wounds," she blinked, managing a small nod. He cleaned her injuries with quiet skill. The alcohol made her gasp, but she endured it, jaw clenched tight. Wyatt worked without speaking. His hands moved from experience, hands that had buried too many loved ones, saved too few. When finished, he retrieved an old quilt from the cedar chest and covered her. Then he went to the stove, heating water. Minutes later, he returned with a warm cloth, pressing it gently to her face. She flinched. He pulled back. "You're safe in this place. Do you understand?" Her gaze flicked to his, then away. "My name is Wyatt Reed. This is my property. No one will harm you under my roof." She whispered something barely audible. "What did you say?" "Lydia Sawyer," he nodded. "Very well, Miss Sawyer. Try to rest now," she exhaled shakily. "I was traveling with a wagon train, heading to Oregon." Wyatt offered her a metal cup of water. She drank with trembling hands. "They struck at night," she continued. "3 men, possibly 4, wore masks. Took me while everyone else slept." He leaned closer. "They said they'd trade me. There's a saloon at Fort Rock that purchases women. Said I'd bring good coin because I was ... untouched." Her face crumpled, not with tears but shame. Wyatt stared into the flames. His jaw tightened. "Why did they leave you here?" "Got frightened," she murmured. "Thought someone was tracking them. One struck me when I cried out too loudly. Next thing I knew, I was in that sack, choking." Wyatt remained silent. "I'm telling the truth," she said hoarsely. He met her gaze, bruised, bloodshot, but clear. "I believe you," he said finally. She relaxed slightly. "You'll remain here tonight," he said. "After that we'll see," she nodded, eyelids growing heavy. Wyatt turned to leave, then stopped at the wardrobe. He retrieved 2 items, a weathered wool coat in dark green with faded buttons, his wife's, and a small ceramic, jug wrapped in cloth, back at the cot. He gently lifted the covers and tucked the jug near her feet. "Just heated water," he explained. "Keeps the chill away." Then he laid the coat across her shoulders. Lavender and cedar still lingered faintly in the fabric. His fingers touched the collar. He hesitated. Lydia, half asleep, opened her eyes just enough to see his expression change. Not just quiet and stern anymore, but sorrowful, hollowed out, as if that coat had pulled something deep from within him. He held it a moment too long, then released it. Wyatt pulled a chair close to the cot and settled in, elbows resting on his knees. "You don't need to watch over me," she whispered. "Yes," he said quietly. "I do." He didn't sleep during those long hours. He watched the fire dance, listened to her breathing steady. He adjusted the kettle when it whistled too loudly, smoothed the blanket when she stirred. At one point she murmured something in her dreams, a name perhaps, or a prayer. Wyatt didn't ask. He simply sat there, hat in his lap, hands folded over the brim. By morning, the wind had calmed. Pale light crept across the wooden floor. Lydia slept peacefully now, hands tucked in the sleeves of a coat meant for another. And Wyatt Red, who had laid to rest more than most men could endure, sat silent in that wooden chair, daring the past to test him again. The morning sun crested the Wyoming ridges, casting golden light across the dry pasture. Wyatt Reed stood on his porch, coffee in hand, scanning his land. At first glance, everything appeared normal. Peaceful, motionless, perhaps too motionless. Then he spotted them, fresh hoof prints, deep impressions, not from his animals. These were too large, too recent. They circled around the barn where the earth was churned with more than horse tracks. Boot prints, wide and heavy. He moved slowly, following the trail past the water troughs. His breath caught as he rounded the paddock corner. There in the dirt lay a dead mongrel, a mangy stray that had been lurking around for weeks, scavenging for scraps. Its body was limp, twisted, a clean bullet wound between its eyes. Wyatt knelt beside the carcass, his jaw hardening. Whoever had come through during the night hadn't just passed by. They'd sent a warning. He stood, eyes narrowing, following the tracks along the property line near the cottonwoods. Something caught his attention. On the trunk of the largest tree, burned black into the bark, was a crude mark, a symbol Wyatt's blood turned to ice. He'd seen that marking before, years ago on wanted posters and in hushed conversations around town. It belonged to the Redmouth Riders, a gang notorious for trafficking women across the territories. Brutal, well-organized, rarely captured. They'd branded what they considered theirs. They were claiming Lydia. Wyatt turned and strode quickly back, boots kicking up dust. Inside the cabin, Lydia sat on the cot wrapped in the green coat. Her eyes were clearer this morning, though dark shadows still marked her face. He entered without speaking and grabbed a lantern. "Get your boots on," he said. She looked confused. "What?" "We're out of time," she obeyed, struggling to her feet. "What's happened?" "They were here last night. Around the barn. Left me a calling card." Fear flashed in her eyes. "They know." He didn't respond, just handed her a shawl and motioned for her to follow. They crossed the yard silently. Lydia limped slightly but kept pace. Wyatt led her behind the main house toward the old hay shed. Dust filled the air as he pulled open the doors. Inside, it smelled of dry timber and oil. At the back, behind stacked crates, was a trapdoor. He knelt, pried it open, and revealed narrow stairs leading underground. "What is this?" She whispered. "Storm cellar," he said. "My family built it during the war when fighting came close. Stored supplies, hid when things got dangerous." He lit the lantern and held it out. "You'll wait down here, at least until I determine our next move." She hesitated. "I've been confined enough." Wyatt looked at her, his voice low. "This isn't confinement. It's protection." "You said they'd come for you." She swallowed hard, then nodded. She climbed down slowly. The cellar was cramped but dry, lined with shelves and an old cot in the corner. Wyatt descended behind her and set the lantern on a crate. He checked the door again, then stood quietly for a long moment. "I've run before," she said quietly. "Twice," he turned to her. "First time I smashed a bottle and fled. Made it 2 miles before they recaptured me. They beat me so severely I couldn't walk for days." Her voice broke. "Second time I hid in a supply wagon. Made it all the way to a stagecoach station before one of them discovered me again." She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "They said next time they'd kill me slowly. That's why I stopped running. I don't know why I'm still alive," she whispered. "But I want to survive this time. I want to truly live." The words hung heavy in the cellar air. Wyatt stepped forward and, without speaking, unhooked his old revolver from his belt. He placed it carefully on the shelf beside the cot. "If anyone comes down those stairs who isn't me, shoot." Lydia stared at the weapon, then at him. "I don't know how," she said. "You'll learn." He paused. "And if you can't, scream." "I'll hear you." For the first time, she almost smiled. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small tin of jerky, and left it on the shelf too. "I'll check on you every hour. I'll lock the trapdoor from outside, but I won't go far." Then he turned, climbed the steps, and closed the hatch. Above, the wind had returned, wild and dry, hissing through the fields. Wyatt secured the doors, then leaned against the frame. Staring out over the land he now understood wasn't just his home anymore. This wasn't random. This was war. Content continues with the same paraphrasing style through the rest of the story. By late afternoon, the wind had stilled. The sun hung low, casting lengthy shadows over the dry fence posts. Wyatt was repairing the gate near the corral when dust rose on the southern trail. 3 horsemen. They approached deliberately, not like travelers passing through, but like men who already knew their destination. Wyatt straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. He watched them ride in boots heavy in stirrups, eyes hidden beneath wide brims. The center rider raised his hand in mock greeting. "Evening, friend." Wyatt didn't respond. They stopped just short of the porch. "We're searching for someone," the middle one said. "Young woman, brown hair, might have come this way." She doesn't talk much, another added with a grin. But she's family. Owes us, Wyatt's voice was low and cold. You her blood? The older rider spat. Blood or bond, doesn't matter, Wyatt stepped forward. Family doesn't stuff a girl in a sack and beat her near to death, the middleman's eyes narrowed. You're making some dangerous assumptions? I saw the bruises, Wyatt said. Heard her plead for air. If that's family, I'd hate to meet your enemies. The youngest rider shifted. His hand brushed his holster. You best mind yourself, the old one growled. That girl belongs to us. Wyatt stepped onto the porch, one hand on his rifle stock. No, he said. She doesn't. A moment passed. The middleman nudged his horse forward. The young one tensed. Then Metal whispered, a gun being drawn. Last chance, rancher, the boy snapped. Hand her over, Wyatt raised the rifle fast. One shot cracked the silence. Dust exploded near the horse's hooves. The animal reared, nearly throwing its rider. The three men jerked back. Wyatt didn't move. Next one won't miss. The riders backed away slowly. The middle one spat. You'll regret this decision? She isn't yours, Wyatt's voice stayed even. Not anymore. They wheeled around and rode off in a cloud of dust. Wyatt stood still, watching the ridge until their shadows vanished. Story continues with the same paraphrasing approach through to the end. If your heart ached when she whispered, we could begin again, or if your breath caught when he said, now I hear home, then go ahead and hit that like button. Because sometimes the most powerful moments in the West aren't the gunfights. They're the quiet instances when someone chooses to stay. Subscribe to Wild West Echoes for more tales of courage, grace, and second chances under the endless sky. A new adventure waits just beyond the next hill. See you on the trail, partner?